everybody comes to me and everybody comes to Alloy and they're looking for the how. I've looked online and there's all these great diets and you need to tell me which the best one is and you need to tell me what equipment is the best and is strength training better than cardio, and all those things are important. None of them matter unless you have a deep, deep reason why you're doing it.
Hello, Rami.
What's up, Rick?
How are you?
I'm awesome, man.
I'm not even going to try to figure out how many times you've been on the podcast.
I know.
We're considering
107.
107 times. We're actually considering subbing in Rami for Matt.
Yeah.
Matt's really hurt. But, Matt doesn't have a speaking part, which is weird for a mostly audio podcast.
Yeah. He doesn't. Is Matt even on any of your podcasts?
I think so. I mean, he's in the seat, right?
Poor Matt. I hate giving Matt a hard time because he's so freaking nice.
He is such a good dude.
I don't have a problem giving Jared a hard time because he gives it right back.
Right.
But with Matt, I feel like he's too good of a guy.
Well, you don't know him well enough. He's pretty sarcastic. So.
Oh, is he good? Yeah, he is. You're right.
So we have a great topic today, but per every other podcast of 2023, we're going to start with a Did You Know? Rami, do you have one?
I do. So today we're going to talk about nutrition, which is pretty cool. We haven't talked about that yet. Yep. So I think that'll be fun. Kind of my pet project, right?
Yeah, that's something you've always done.
So did you know that in 1900, the average person in the United States ate 80 pounds of sugar a year? Which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. If you break it down over 360, sounds like a crap ton of sugar, but it's not. Did you know in 2012, that number was 180 pounds of sugar, which is a pound every 2 days.
I mean,
it's a half a pound a day.
Dude. A pound of sugar every 2 days.
Remember the bags of sugar
Well, that's what I think of. Yeah. 180 of those?
180 a year. That's the average. So you got to figure there's people that are pounding up
I guess if you're drinking like a 2-liter Pepsi a day and having like a Cindy bun for breakfast.
Right. And plus it's in everything. So it's in 70% of all the, I don't want to get head on numbers, but isn't that crazy?
But here's the thing. I mean, this is what we all know. If you are a little bit overweight, it's not your fault. It's genetics.
Right. Exactly.
It has nothing to do with 180 bags of sugar. All right. Well, mine's a little bit more positive because I'm a glass half full guy, Rami. Really
I'm very negative. I'm just
pre-podcast conversations. So how about this? I'm reading mine because I can't remember all this. So in 1946, a South African child who dreamed of being a scientist wrote to Albert Einstein, and they became pen pals. A few letters later, she said she regretted being a girl, so she was female, and apologized for not telling him sooner and hoped he wouldn't think less of her. Now, mind you, this is 46, right? This is awesome. He quickly replied, I do not mind that you are a girl, but the main thing is that you yourself do not mind. There's no reason for it.
Oh, that's
How cool is that, right?
That's awesome.
Like you take somebody who's that powerful and you're a budding, scientist, if you will, right? That's your aspiration and your hero. Says something like that, and that's freaking awesome. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, we're kind of like Einstein, don't you think?
Yeah, in a different way, like without the
good
looks or the intelligence. Sure. I bet I could outlift him. I mean, there's that.
I could definitely outrun him, and you can outlift him, and I think I can outlift him now. So
I think you could too.
I'm excited. This is number 6, by the way. This is our 6th podcast.
All right, welcome back. Like you're a crowd pleaser, a favorite. Awesome. So today, Rami's background and expertise, I know we've talked about around it and a lot of different things, but he really has an extensive background in nutrition and nutrition coaching. He used to work at a local hospital and work on obesity programs, work with diabetics. I mean, a lot of really high-level nutrition. And he still does a lot of coaching, like executive coaching, online for people all over the world. And he works with them on all aspects of life, from sleep to stress to strength training to all the things that most of the things that Alloy would prescribe. So I wanted to have him on today and talk about, I guess, the 5 main components that you see from 30 plus years of coaching people on nutrition, more than that at this point, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
And we'll talk about the top 5 and why they're so important and kind of through your lens. Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, so the first
one
I love
how
you
said that like it was your idea. That was so well done.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've been thinking about for quite a while. I've crafted what I think are the 5 most important things. I hope that you can answer
10 minutes before the podcast. Where's that email you sent me with the 5 top things that you researched? You knew I was going to call you out on that.
Do not listen to this.
No, this did not happen.
True.
Rick prepares for this podcast for months.
Extensive research. But I do think it's important because most of our clients come to us at least at the start. We always say they come for the fitness goal, they stay for the community long term. Right. But there's always weight loss is usually at least a secondary goal for most people that we see.
100%.
Right? And I mean, you mentioned the 180 pounds of sugar. I mean, there's probably 500 other things like that that's happened in our society. So weight loss, it's a strange time for people that haven't evolved really to have an excess of calories, right? And don't have a season of hunger or whatever.
Yeah,
so
we
it's
have the only homeless, obese population in the world in the United States.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Well, because
sugar's cheap.
That's it. Those calories are cheap now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good if you're starving, but like if you're not, it's like, wow, how could you be poor? And now it is socioeconomic. So it used to be that if you were poor, you were like starving. And if you were chubby, it was a sign of like wealth. Right now, it's the other way around. Like, the foods that are healthy are more expensive, and you can get cheap calories. So you can buy a Big Mac for $1.
Yeah, just to get on the side, because we never do that. We always stay right on topic, but to already go on a tangent. Like I volunteer at the homeless shelter through my church, and bottom line is we don't have a whole lot of budget, right? And so we give them sticky buns and and Gatorade.
It's a lot of calories for $1. Like if you're doing a formula,
we pack those and we try to make a sandwich with a little bit of peanut butter, and that's it. And it's sugar. And this is a crazy story. But before they leave in the morning, they take their water bottles and they fill them. We have to keep filling the sugar. The sugar like you get in a diner that pours in.
Yeah.
They fill a water bottle with sugar and water, and they call it Gatorade because I asked them, why are you doing this? They said, because we don't know if we're getting back in here tonight. So we need calories.
No way.
Yeah, so they don't know if they're going to get a meal. They don't know where their next meal is coming from, and they know the best way to get it is sugar. So,
but yet they're overweight.
Right.
So they're getting plenty of it.
They're getting way more calories than they need. Is that crazy?
It's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, so that being said, let's talk about, like, through the lens of our clients, the number one thing that you think is most important for changing nutritional habits or getting on track is to define your why. And I really don't know what you mean by that. So explain it.
Awesome. Great. And this is everything. So this is, you want to train for an Ironman triathlon. You want to run a marathon. You want to lose weight. You want to lower your cholesterol. All of these things. And everybody comes to me and everybody comes to Alloy and they're looking for the how. Like, I've looked online and there's all these great diets and you need to tell me which the best one is. And you need to tell me what equipment is the best. And is strength training better than cardio? And all those things are important, right? None of them matter unless you have a deep, deep reason why you're doing it. And most people, this is really hard to get to with most people. And remember we used to talk about like peeling back the onion in the starting point session?
That's what we call it, yep.
And it can take an hour and a half, right? I found it can take 5 sessions. And my sessions are a half hour long with clients, right? Or more. And so most people instantly can tell you their goal. Right away. They can say, you're on an elevator. What's your goal? I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to fit in this bathing suit by, or I'm getting married and I'm going to get in this wedding dress, right? That's my goal. And I say, why? Dead silence. And they give you another goal. They don't understand what you're asking for, right? Like people cannot get there. And there are some people that really push back on it. So I tell a story every time when I'm doing a presentation on this. I had a client. He was a photographer for Sports Illustrated, and yes, he did get to photograph the swimsuit issues. So
sounds like
very
a terrible
happy,
job.
Awful. He traveled all around the world, taking photos for Sports Illustrated. And so he traveled a lot. He was really good about getting his personal training sessions. He was doing 3 sessions a week with me, but he did nothing else. He literally ate a crap diet. He loved his food in the airport was the Cinnabons. Remember those places?
Those are so good.
They're so good. You know what they are per Cinnabon calories?
It's 1,500.
1,200.
Okay,
yeah, 1,200, right? Iseen's got to make it 1,500. I have female clients who can only do 1,300 calories a day and maintain a body. And so that one cinnamon bun has, 1,500, 1,200. And, he'd say, I don't have time for cardio. I don't have the time to do my diet. I can make the personal training sessions. And that's it. And he was in decent shape. He's probably 30 pounds overweight, but not bad, right? And his thing, what he always said, I said, why can't you do that? And he said, I don't have any time. I'm too busy. So fast forward, we're doing a session. He's on the treadmill. He's warming up. And he starts kind of grabbing himself like this, crossing my arms for people that aren't listening, which is the international sign from heart attack.
Right.
I feel pressure. I'm feeling, and I was like, oh my God, 10 years of CPR. I'm finally going to get to use it. Oh my God, I'm going to have to kiss this guy. It was a really weird moment.
Sure, yeah.
And I said, you know what? Let's stop the session. Have you go to the doctor and just check. So he immediately says, no, I'm fine. Second sign of a heart attack is denial. Right? I'm fine. It's just asthma. Let's go. And I'm like, no, you're leaving. So it's like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. At 1 o'clock the next day, his wife calls me and says he just got out of open heart surgery. Wow. So in other words, he went to the doctor went to the hospital, I think.
Straight from
They didn't even let him go home. And he went in and had quadruple bypass surgery. So that's how he was 99% blocked. He was a day away from a heart attack.
Right.
So there's a point to this story, right? He doesn't die. A year later, that guy is 30 pounds lighter. Mm-hmm. He trains 7 days a week. He eats the cleanest diet, eats a cleaner diet than I do, By the way, he's still a full-time photographer at Sports Illustrated. He's still traveling all around the world.
Some time.
What changed? Not his time, his why.
Right.
Yeah. Now, this is not like everybody has to have a heart attack to change. But without something like that, and I love Gary Keller from Keller Williams, he says, if it doesn't make you cry, it's not a big enough why, right? It has to have an emotional component. And that's why it's hard to get to. So when I first work with a client and they come to me and they all want to lose weight and they all want to gain muscle, everybody has the same goals, right? I get to the why, and it takes a while, dude. Like, it takes a while, but without it,
it's a skill, though. I think the more reps you get at getting to the why, like, I'm sure for someone like you can see and hear the triggers and with the follow-up questions.
Yeah,
right?
I know where it's going. I know where it's going, right?
Right? Like, you've learned how to ask the right questions.
Yeah. I want to lose 20 pounds. Why? Because I want to look better. Why? Because, and you ask it in a nicer way than that. Yeah. Why? Why?
But you know what you're really doing? And I think, when you talk about motivation, like the carrot or the stick, and I think, like, as negative as this sounds, I think pain is a better motivator
100%
than a like, I think the old study that I heard was, if you reach this goal, this fat loss goal, and it was not too aggressive, it was weight loss, but if you reach this goal in this amount of time, you will get sort of $5,000. And it was some ridiculous amount of people, like 20% stuck with it. Yeah. And it was it wasn't an aggressive goal, and it was a pretty compelling payoff, right? And several $1,000s for seemingly something that you wanted anyway, right? Only 20% of people could stick with it. Now, the other group in the test study, it was, we're going to take a picture of you in a bathing suit, and they did that for both groups. And then they told them afterwards, if you don't reach this goal, we're going to publish this picture on, say, social media.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, they all did it.
So carrot or stick, unfortunately, the stick is mightier than the carrot. So I think a lot about peeling the onion, as much as that sounds negative, it's not. Peeling the onion is about getting down to the pain, right?
It really is. I think those things up all the time, by the way. I find it like that's my art, like a creative. I did one where I had a staunch Democrat, and she had to give $5,000 to Trump's reelection campaign if she didn't lose the weight.
That's amazing.
You think she lost it?
Yep.
Because if I told her you have to give $5,000 to Hillary Clinton's campaign, she would have been like, well, I don't care. I want to do it anyway.
Right.
Yep. $5,000 didn't mean anything to her. It could have been $1, by the way.
Right.
Because it was somebody she hated, right?
I love that.
Wasn't that a cool one?
That's awesome.
That was a really good one. And, and I find the same thing, but you never know what that why is going to be. That's the craziest thing. Like, I have somebody walk in and they're 350 pounds or 400 pounds, and you think, oh my God, this person must have 50 whys, right? Can't fit in clothes. Can't go to the beach. Can't do anything, right? Has to buy 2 tickets on an airplane. Like, all these things would, for you and I, we'd be like, oh my God, I'm changing everything.
Right.
I had a guy like that. He was 420 pounds when he met me. And what we got to is he couldn't get on a roller coaster with his kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
It made him cry. Tough guy too, but like, to get him, that took sessions.
But see, that's the thing. Like, if you ask those questions, and I think it's really important, like, for franchisees that are listening, like, that's what we are. We're a personal training brand. And while Rami's doing this for 30 plus years, he's gotten good at it. It really you just keep asking why till you get to the core of it, right?
Yeah.
It's peeling the onion. Just ask enough why questions so you get there. And we had a guy, you remember Joe, that used to work here, amazing, right? And he used to sort of laugh and say, like, well, like, if you're not crying, it's not, I'm not doing a good job. Like, everyone cries was his joke. Yeah. But literally almost everyone that he would talk to that had a compelling why would get to tears.
Yeah.
It's that personal. Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. Like, if we're bringing this back to Alloy and say coaches are doing, most of the time it's the operator doing the starting point.
Sure.
But coaches will have meetings with people and all that. It's being able to be in that uncomfortable situation with someone. And that's really hard for a lot of people. A lot of people, when they see, if I was doing this with you, which would never happen because you're a psychopath, like, you would never cry. You've never cried in your life.
Right, no.
But if we were doing it and I was uncomfortable and I saw you getting uncomfortable, I might just like, okay, we're good. We'll take that. You know what I mean? Like, I would just move on from it, as opposed to being okay to be in that moment,
Yeah, it's so weird because I know that's like, on the other side of that is where the magic happens. So I don't want people to cry for psychopathic reasons. I
hate them.
But I know if we get there, now we're at ground zero and we can start to build, right?
Right.
But you got to know that why.
Yeah, 100%. And that I stay on that, and it drives people crazy. And I tell people this before they sign up. Like, my coaching is not cheap, and I tell people, like, we might have to stick on this for a month. And they're like, no, I want my diet plan, and I want you to tell me how much I should exercise, and I want to know how many grams of protein I should eat. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that until you tell me why we're doing this.
Right, because otherwise it's just another tactic that's going to get nowhere.
Going to get nowhere, and it's not good for them. It's not good for me. And it's good to get to that point in my career where I literally can tell people, now's not the time. Right. Like, let's just not do this now.
And when you're ready to sit down and tell me the truth.
Which, by the way, that tactic gets people to tell me their why like 90% of the time. They're like, okay, I'll tell you.
I love it, man. Yeah. I didn't know we were going to go with it, but now I love it. Makes sense. It, right? So that's number one is if you define your why. Without that, everything else is a moot point. The second one is accountability / tracking.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one that actually comes from research. The number one correlation to long-term weight loss, and the definition, the American Society of Weight Loss or whatever it's called, definition of true weight loss is 5 years. It's losing 30 kilograms or more. This is how they define it, for 5 years or longer. So it's not a 1-year diet.
Right.
Like all diets work for 6 months, all of them. How long does this work and how do you keep it off? And, the stats are really bad, right, for people over 5 years, especially ones that aren't exercising, aren't lifting weights, aren't eating enough protein, all of that. But the number one correlated thing is tracking your food.
Yeah.
It's not the type of diet.
Now, and is it tracking it like it seems like it in historically, because obviously we've been doing it as long, that people don't track like for, say, 5 years, right?
Right.
If they track it and then they understand it, they're always unpleasantly surprised at maybe the amount of calories or like,
Yeah, like the cinema bun,
Right.
I have people pre-track all the time. I go, before you walk into Starbucks and get a latte, a large full fat latte and a bran muffin, just track it for me. It's like 1,300 calories for those two things.
Right? Exactly. And some of those mocha, like,
oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
Madagascar cinnamon and all the, like those are like a 1,000-calorie coffee that you just have with your meal, right? Yeah. It's crazy. So, well, do you find that you have to keep tracking for 5 years? Because that sounds like a tall order for a lot of people. It is a tall
order. And first of all, it's reps and it's getting used to it,
Like if you tracked it and then, because as much as people like variety and whatnot, they kind of eat the same things, if we're honest. So
like about 85% of the time we eat the same foods every day.
Okay, so if you tracked it and then you were able to build a plan, you wouldn't have to track every week for 5 years, right?
You would not. And what I tell people is, look, I tell them two things. I say, we're going to track until we get you on momentum, and we're going to get you to the point where you understand what does a 3-ounce chicken breast look like, right? When you go to the restaurant, like if you go to Longhorn and you get a full steak, it's 12 to 14 ounces. That's not a serving size for most people.
Right.
Steak's great. We want protein, but literally even I, at 230 pounds now, Rick, 230, just saying, never weighed that much. Well, whatever. I cut it in half most of the time, and then I eat the rest of it, and it's still a 1,000-calorie meal.
Right.
So you get to the point where you understand it. They're doing well, and then it's a tool in your toolbox that you always have. That if you see your weight ticking up, or you have a new goal, right? I'm going to a wedding. You start tracking again. You're good at it. Now, there are some people that I literally have. Like I've got a buddy. You know me. I'm so OCD. I've tracked every day for like 1,400 days.
Right.
Now, sometimes, like when I was in Spain, I would just write a donut or something just to keep my tracking going, right?
Sure, yeah. But not break the streak.
I don't want to break the streak. But there are people that's super motivational for. It gives them a sense of control in an out-of-control world. You get a little dopamine hit when you put it in there. And you learn something every day. I learn something every single day with these apps. Yeah, and I'm old enough. We've had these funny conversations where when I worked at Northside Hospital, they brought in a physical notebook that they had been writing all their stuff in for a week. So imagine a week of writing.
And I took it home. Very repetitive if we're having the same things. You got to write it down every time.
Every time, bran muffin, whatever, right? And then I took that home with my carb counting book. Do you remember those big thick books?
Yes.
And I would do the calculations for a week for 30 people a week. So I learned a lot about calories, right? But that now it's so much. Like people complain about MyFitnessPal, and I'm like, I feel like the old guy, like, you don't know what it was like in my day.
Stone tablets. Chipping it out on a stone tablet.
Yeah, but it's massively powerful.
Well, and to your point, like, first of all, like as a props to Alloy, like we have the app which you can track in, right? And we even have a feature, like we have a customer at our home gym around the corner here, and she didn't want to track, so she just takes a picture of her food and
I do that all the time.
Right.
That was a client suggestion to me.
That's in the app, right? Yep. So in the Alloy app, you can take pictures and like it's all in there.
Yeah.
So every time we have like a confirmation day where people come out, we show that feature and here's Janet or whatever, and she's got a picture of every meal that she's had.
Yeah. Which is another level of accountability. So like imagine doing that. So that's a level of accountability and tracking.
Right. Yep.
And then imagine you have to send that to a coach.
Well, that's
a whole nother level.
So that's the point. And like someone's like the app allows the coach to see it. And people are always like, what do you guys do for nutrition? Do you have like a menu planner? Do you have like a suggested this or that? I'm like, a bunch of recipes. I'm like, you know what, you guys, like, we've been in business for 31 years. We've had a dietitian on our team almost the entire time. We've tried everything from Weight Watchers, like group meetings, to like one-on-one meetings, to the most effective thing we do is have people track food.
Yeah.
And they know that somebody's looking at it. Yeah. It's that simple.
That's it.
Do you agree?
That's it. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you don't need all that stuff. And all that stuff is like, it's stuff. So it sounds like, hey, there's going to be value. Like they're going to give me a set menu plan, but that's not, like you said, that's not the 5 year. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. We've talked about this study before. This dates us to, I think it was 20 years ago, where it was AFA or URSA or somebody did a study where they had people, they gave everybody a training program and then they split them into like 4 groups, right? And one did it on their own. One did it with a trainer just standing in the corner, not talking to them, just with his arms crossed, right? Like one thing we hate, just standing there with his arms crossed. They trained 25% harder. Then a group where the coach like kind of talked about the program, didn't really coach them, but basically walked them through it. They trained 50% harder. And then when the coach was with them, like actually motivated, like you can do more. Well, let's go up on the next set. They doubled their strength.
Crazy.
Standing in the corner.
Right. So imagine like you're doing a food log. That's one thing. But there's someone on the other end who's checking on it. You're going to have to see in person. Yeah. That's our mechanism.
Yeah.
Right?
And when I did the bodybuilding thing last year, every Monday morning, I did track my food, track my macros, track my workouts. Coach looked at all of them, right? And I know he's not granular. He's not looking at every set or anything like that. And I had to send him progress pictures every Monday morning.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like with my shirt off, like real deal, So
you can do that too in the Alloy app. You can either take a picture of your food or of yourself.
Yeah.
And send it in.
Okay, this could get weird.
Send it to Rami.
Yeah. No, don't give my email. Inundated with pictures.
Right. Gonna get dick pics. Anyway, from me.
Here we go.
Who's this guy?
Wait. It took 19 minutes. That's our new record.
19 minutes, no genitalia talk. Apologies. We're both 12 years old at heart. All right.
Yep.
Number 3. This one's interesting.
Yes.
Calories matter more than type of diet or macros.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
This is super powerful.
Because even when I read that, I'm like, really?
Yeah, I know. Like so everybody says, if I go on the carnivore diet, I can eat as much as I want. Or if I go on keto, right? So,
got it.
So one of the funny things, I think it's funny. They don't think it's funny, but 50% of the people come to me, and people come like 420 pounds. I have a woman who's 5'7", 320. Like these are big people, right? Especially Northside Hospital, we had a scale that went to 700. Like we had people pre-bariatric, really like coming in wheelchairs.
That's right, because you were like training them, like the insurance made them work with you before they were allowed to get bariatric surgery.
They had to lower their BMI, which I hate. But anyway, they had to lower their BMI to a certain number because they would die in the surgery.
Right, yeah.
Right? Gosh, it's such a crazy thing. But anyway, I digress. So almost, I could say 50% or more, they'll say 2 things to me that crack me up, but I don't laugh out loud. One is, I think I'm like this because I don't eat enough. Because they've read somewhere that their metabolism, because if you don't eat enough, your metabolism.
It was an old trainer thing as well. Like my last trainer told me I wasn't losing weight because I wasn't eating enough.
I needed to add 500 to 1,000 calories a day to bump up my metabolism. Now, that comes from science. And where it comes from is like fitness models who chronically dieted, literally 3 hours of cardio a day, eating 800 calories to get to 7% body fat. And they did it multiple times. Yes, their BMR went down 100%. And they had to reverse diet to get back to a normal amount of food. They couldn't go, they couldn't, they got to the point where they had to eat 800 calories a day to even stay lean.
Right.
That's maybe 1/100th to 1% of the population.
Right.
What I say to those people in a very nice way is, have you ever watched the show Survivor? Yep.
Right.
Do you know what they were eating? Like 700 calories a day of rice, right? Every one of those people got skinny as F.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
They were not eating enough. So it's not what got you here. And the other one that's funny is they say, I think it's the Diet Coke that I'm drinking. I'm like,
that's definitely that.
It can't be the McDonald's burger you had on the way over here and the pizza you had last night. It's got to be the Diet Coke, which has 0 calories. And we can debate artificial sweeteners and all that.
But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about.
It's so minutia. And they come in. So to this number 3 is they come in with a diet. They all do. This is the one I saw. This is what we're going to do. And whatever it is. And by the way, one of the biggest compliments I get from my clients is I meet them where they are. In other words, I don't have a plan for you. Like, I'm going to give you something totally different than somebody else. And I'm going to give you something that fits you. Right. Luckily, in 31 years, I have a really big toolbox of plans.
Right. Yep.
Right. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I start everybody pretty general, kind of moderate carbohydrate, high protein, a lot of water, like all the basics. Right. And then we diverge from there. But they're so focused on the diet. And I'm like, the first thing we have to do is lower your calories.
Right.
You don't lose body fat unless you're in a deficit. You don't gain muscle unless you're in a bit of a surplus. Like it's called thermodynamics,
Right.
And it's so funny to me that they get so fixated on the type of food or even the food quality. We've seen those things where the guys ate, a McDonald's. There's a guy that's eaten a Big Mac every day for 20 years. He weighs 180. He's like 18% body fat.
Right.
Because he wraps his whole day around that burger.
Right.
You don't need anything else.
Well, what was the name of the movie? And it's escaping me now. Supersize Me. And he gorged himself, and all of his markers were horrible.
Yeah, in 30 days.
Then there was another guy who made a documentary that didn't get any press, and it was called Downsize Me.
Yep.
And he only ate at McDonald's for all of his meals and lost a bunch of weight.
Right.
Because he just ate less calories.
Right. There's a professor,
nutrition
professor that eats Twinkies every day.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. So,
and this got popular with fitness models. That's how If It Fits Your Macros came out. There was a really popular Instagram kind of influencer who got to like 7% body fat, and she ate a large Snickers every day in her prep all the way till she got on stage.
Right.
You know what she ate besides that? A little bit of protein and some water, right? So she stayed in the calorie thing. So people get frustrated with this as well. You can tell that, I love coaching. I really find it. But what I really love about it is the challenge of it.
Right.
Like if it didn't have it, look, man, that side of my career, that the coaching has a 95% failure rate. Can you imagine if you're at a conference and okay, guys, I really want you to dive into this alloy thing. You have a 95% chance of failing. Who's in?
Right.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that has a 5% success rate.
Nutrition.
Yeah.
That's because
number one is Weight Watchers, and they have a 5% success rate over 5 years.
When it goes back to defining your why and there's so many things that factor into it, right? Lifestyle-wise, you got to break belief systems. You got to get rid of the head trash that says, if I don't eat a keto or coconut milk, and it's yes, at some point, if the quality of your calories is 100%. Better, you're going to feel better. You're going to get more vitamins and minerals. But if we're just talking about weight loss, and what I'm hearing from this is calories matter.
Number one.
The most.
Number one. And
then let's look at ways to increase your satiety and get you better. If you got 1,800 calories, let's figure out how to get as much food as you can with that, right? That kind of idea.
And make you feel good and give you energy and all that kind of stuff, right?
But we're not talking about health. We're just saying for weight loss, calories work. Well, I mean, you have to be in a deficit.
When you leave bariatric surgery, you average 200 to 500 calories a day, I think for almost a month, and it's liquid. You get a shot of protein.
Of course you're losing a ton of weight.
Of course they lose 40 pounds, right? And they're miserable, but they feel great because they've lost the weight, So yeah, it's funny. Any kind of extreme diet, which I really consider, I call them elimination diets, which they're going to hate me out there, but the vegan diet is an elimination diet, right?
It is.
It can be super healthy and you can do it right, but ultimately it's not the vegetables you're eating that are making you lose weight and feel good. It's what you're not eating. It's what you're carnivore. It's not the meat. It's that you've cut out all that 2 pounds of sugar every 2 days.
Right.
You've cut out
There's no magic to
all that horrible oils, right? There's no magic to what you're eating. It's what you've cut out. So when people say, oh, keto was great for me, it was for me too. Because you know what? It's really hard to overeat bacon.
Right.
I can overeat
crazy.
bagels.
I like bacon, but
No, but bacon is actually fairly low calories.
Right.
I have a funny story about this. I taught a nutrition class to Boy Scouts. Can you imagine?
Oh, that's awesome.
10-year-olds. And I was talking about that the amount of food is really what we should pay. There's no such thing as a bad food. Right. There's bad amounts. And I said, so for instance, apples are really good for you, right? I'm talking little kids, Right. But if you ate 100 apples in a sitting, you would not be in a good place. You might actually die.
You should have fruit salad, but other than that, you're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd have really good fiber, And then I said, and conversely, everybody goes, oh, bacon's not good for me. A little bit of bacon is fine if it fits into your diet. So at the end, I go, okay, kids, we've just had this 1 hour thing. What did we learn today? And they all raised their hands. Apples are bad and bacon is good. I was like, oh, I failed miserably, you know?
That's right. Like,
kids,
all right, good enough.
All right, that's good. You know what?
Let's build some, let's build Legos. Let's get some badges. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. I belabor that point a lot, but I think it's one of the number one things is people are fixated on the how.
Right.
You know, this worked for me 20 years ago. I did Atkins, whatever. And by the way, every single diet that you talk about, I have a client on it. So I'm not like
they all work.
They all work.
As long as they get your calories where they need to be.
They all work. Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, and then some work, like my keto diet was great for me for 5 years because I was an ultra runner and I wanted to get off the carbohydrate train. But I didn't really care how my body looked. I could not do keto and put on muscle. It didn't work. I tried it. You know, I said to my coach, give me a month. He goes, he was great. He was like, all right, we can try it if you want. He said, it's not going to work, but we can try it. He was great. You know, I also said, I want to continue fasting. He said, we can try that. It's not going to work, but you can. Like, this guy knows bodybuilding. Within a month, I'm like, yeah, I can't train. I can't do 30 sets of chest on bacon. You know, like it's not working, right?
Exactly.
And I wasn't gaining any muscle. So my point on that is it might work for you today, but a good coach a year from now says this isn't working for you anymore.
Right. Different strategy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But calories matter.
Calories matter more than anything. Truly. Again, in the scope of fat loss, muscle gain, that kind of thing. In terms of health, if I have somebody who's celiac or somebody who's dealing with cancer, we're going in a totally different road. Yeah. I'm talking about probably 95% of the population.
Right. And 5 overreaching principles.
Exactly. Exactly.
Number 4, adequate protein. I love this one.
Yeah, it's great because this is another one like we talked about with the studies on accountability, right? And I always use, when I talk about food logging, I say, imagine if you had to see your dentist every Friday. You would floss every single day. I literally floss 5 days before I go to the dentist, and that's all I floss for. I hope my dentist doesn't listen to these.
That's disgusting. I floss every night. I really do.
That's awesome.
You know, I've never had a cavity though, so I've got to keep my streak alive.
Oh, you're so weird, dude. You have all these things that no other human has.
I know. I'm just trying to keep my streak alive.
I don't have a tooth that doesn't have a cavity, but I knocked half my teeth out in motocross. So anyway,
that's true.
That did not help.
I've lost a few too.
That did not help.
Yeah, but I haven't had a cavity.
What were we talking about? Protein. Okay, so
adequate protein.
Yeah, so this is another one that across the board, when we talk about the success of diets, the most successful diets are what the RDA would consider as high protein. What you and I consider is just normal protein for somebody lifting weights, even somebody who's sedentary, right? As we age and all that.
You know, when I was talking to, before I forget, when I was talking to Alan Aragon, and we talked about protein, like I was like, all right, if you could say one thing, he's like, I can't. I have to say 2 things. First, it would be like lift weights.
Yep.
Second, it would be get adequate protein. But one thing that was interesting that he said is somewhat of a new revelation based on, again, and you imagine a guy who's like reading all the studies and he knows if they're good or bad studies.
His newsletter. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
I just wish somebody would read it to me.
A guy that's willing to read all the studies and he understands good studies versus bad. So this is a good study. And he looks at the good studies and compiles the info. And he's like, here's what we're seeing. It's usually somewhere in the middle. One thing I thought was really interesting was that just the synthesis of protein alone, so getting adequate protein in your diet will help you build muscle, even if you're not strength training.
Yeah.
And that I have never heard.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
So just
not a lot.
Not a lot. Yeah,
but it shows up in a study. It's significant.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's enough there to show a positive gain in lean tissue without strength training just by getting adequate protein.
It's like
so imagine if you coupled it with strength
and you're lifting, right?
Exactly.
And so it's one of the things, like, that's why I tell people that are post-surgery that are like basically immobile.
Yes.
Eat as much protein as you possibly can because it's going to help you recover, help the healing of the surgery and all that.
And it keeps
you'll feel full.
Right. And well, that's the increased satiety is like the key.
It's massive.
And usually for us, it's like track your food. And, you know, we'll go up to a gram of protein per pound of body weight, or like if you do the in-body per pound of lean body weight, which is like the lean mass in your body.
Yep.
And that's hard for a lot of people, and that's why we do supplements. It's like, here's a protein. And again, same thing with talking to Alan. I'm like, does that work? He's like, it's the best hack ever.
Oh, it's amazing.
There's no reason why you shouldn't be having a protein shake.
I mean, without having all your meals made by, whatever, some meal preparation company or having your own chef, it's brutal. You know, I had to eat 250 a day, 250 grams a day last year, right? And I'm pretty much at that now. I'm like 230, 200 to 230.
I do like 230 a day, but I do 2 shakes, which I do 2 shakes. That's 100 grams, and I only have to get 130 from food.
Yeah. We should like stand up for the YouTube people.
Oh, yeah. Core power, 42 grams.
Yeah. But that, and so I always thought I was doing about 100 grams a day. On a side note, know, because I know we always talk about, bring it back to Alloy. That's the Alloy whey protein is the first one I've ever had, and I've tried all of them, as you can imagine.
Yeah, you really
that
have.
I could do 100 grams a day and have no GI problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. And it tastes great. Like,
yeah,
it really
like
does
the best
taste good.
tasting one, for sure.
I've talked to the guy, what's his name?
Jason.
Jason, he's so great. And I was laughing because I'm like, oh God, my purists are going to be like, Isopure has 0 grams of sugar and yours has 5. And I'm like, let's go back to the stat that I started this whole thing with. Right. Half a pound a day. And you're worried about this. By the way, they'll still drink a Coke, but God forbid there's 5 grams of sugar in there, and which makes it taste so much better, helps you assimilate the protein better because a little bit of carbohydrates helps.
Right, yep.
And overall, it doesn't make any difference. It's nothing, But anyway.
So benefits are...
Yep. Satiety.
More protein. Satiety.
Yep. Rebuilding muscle, right?
Yep.
So for recovery.
Some muscle synthesis.
Yeah.
I mean, protein synthesis, adding muscle, even with the absence of strength training, which is really interesting for most people.
And I always say adequate protein crowds out bad carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So like if I start people, so I start a general macro program for most people. I do 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat. But that 30% protein can go up. It can always go up.
Right.
And all the studies on kidney damage, all that stuff, they're all
bullshit.
BS. It's all
How
BS.
much you can absorb in a meal, bullshit.
It's all BS.
That, yeah.
You can, you're going to be really full, right? You might not absorb it all, but it's not going to hurt you. In fact, your body, that thermogenic effect of protein, right? Your body breaking down that extra protein is burning calories.
Right.
It's changed now, but when I was in grad school, it was like protein. If you eat 100 calories of protein, like 50 to 75 can be absorbed and 25 to 50% are actually burned to break down the protein. So that's pretty cool. So really high thermogenic effect, right? And then fat is totally absorbable, and so is carbohydrate, right? But so massive benefits. And then so I tell people, I give them a gram total. And I say, so I don't mind if you have what I call a bad day when they eat too little, because I don't want my people eating too little. I don't want them eating too much, right? So say I have somebody like a female on 1,500 calories and 30% protein. If she just doesn't eat enough that day, I make them drink a protein shake at night.
Right.
Or do egg whites, something that's just pure protein, tuna, chicken breast, whatever.
Right.
Because I'm not even worried so much about you eating too little, but I would be really worried if you eat too little protein. Right. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Because then you're losing, then that's sarcopenia, right? Then you're losing muscle.
Well, and that starts at like age 30. If you don't strength train, like you can get, and protein will help, but you still got to, still have to do some resistance. Yeah. Yep. It's interesting because, I know for me, that was probably the easiest hack, was just to set a protein goal. Because in real world application, it might be like I may have dinner relatively early because I don't want to eat too close to going to bed, right? Yep. And then it's like after dinner and I'm like, and I get a sweet tooth and I'm like, I'm going to have some ice cream. Then I literally am like, oh. And, Andrew's like, what? I'm like, oh, I had to have another protein shake. You know what I mean? It's like,
I haven't hit my number.
Like I'm taking my medicine and it tastes great, but I'm just like, oh, I haven't hit my number yet.
Yeah.
So I drink that protein shake, no ice cream. I'm like, I don't want both, right? And I have to get my protein in.
Yeah. I tell people, drink a protein shake on the way. If you're going to a buffet, drink a protein shake on the way. That 200 calories will save you 1,000 at the buffet.
Yeah, I love it.
You'll feel so much better. Yep. Little hack on that nighttime protein, and I learned this from Heather when she, she did those 2 bodybuilding shows. Yep. When she was 50 and 51, she got to 9% body fat at 50.
That's
crazy. She used to make her protein in a bowl at night. So she'd put a crap ton of ice in it and Splenda to make it sweeter, and like a half a banana to make it creamy, and then like 2 scoops of protein and blend the heck out of it and then eat it with a spoon.
Like an ice cream bowl.
She felt she was having ice cream.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that cool? Protein ice cream. And
too much work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You would never do it. Tell Andrea, you need to start making those now.
Yeah, she'll love that.
Yeah. So protein for sure.
Yep. So that was number 4. Number 5, and I think I get this one, but I want to hear your take on it. Sleep.
Yep. Yeah. So I learned this in graduate school, right? That, sleep is where growth hormone is secreted. Sleep is when your muscles recover. Like people that don't understand exercise, they don't understand that weight training is actually sort of a detriment to your body, right? It's actually breaking things down, and then you're building back up and getting stronger, right? So if you don't recover, like people that overtrain, you kind of stay in the same place, right? By the way, I had a graduate student, professor that said that. He goes, we could talk about overtraining. This is really not the problem in America. I love the way he said it. It's like we all talk about, oh my gosh, the people are overtraining. I'm like, no, they're not. They're really not. And by the way, I'd rather somebody overtrain than sit on the couch, you know?
When I used to be really into bodybuilding, there was these two twins and they had all these weird world records.
The Trend Twins? Have you seen them on YouTube?
Nah,
oh my gosh.
This was like way back when.
Pre-YouTube.
Oh,
okay.
Pre-everything, right?
Yeah. Pre-cars.
Pre-automobiles, horse and buggy age.
Yep.
But they would have all these crazy world records for like close grip bench press and stuff. And they were jacked up, clearly on steroids. But they would always say there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovering.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I often said, like, I'd love to see what's going to happen with, you know, all the nutrition and stem cells and all that. We'll get to the point where we can train biceps 5 days in a row. And that would be the thing, right? You just do biceps for 5 days and you don't do them again for a month.
Everyone in my gym is going to murder me because I'm going to take up the squat rack for an hour every night at the busiest time. On my phone.
Completely anti-alloy programming.
Selfies.
All we do is biceps.
Well, I only say that because everyone teases me about it.
I know. I love it.
And I don't actually do that, by the I
Yeah. Yes, you do. We know you do.
Well, I might, but whatever. I'm not talking about that here.
So I learned it in graduate school, but then I really learned it watching, you know, I was in my late 20s in grad school, so I was a total idiot. I was coaching people like us, right? Like 55, 60, whatever, you know, busy professionals. And I would literally tell them, you know, okay, great. So you're starting an exercise program. You need to train 7 days a week, 4 days of weights, 3 days of cardio. Right. You need to completely change your diet. You need to drink a gallon of water a day. And I want you to sleep 9 hours a night. And it's like this glaze would go over. Now I'm like, this week, we're going to try to add a half hour of sleep every night.
Right.
That's our goal.
We're going to go to bed a half hour earlier.
That's all we're doing. And so, but what I learned was I would have people doing the exact same thing. It's kind of my own little experiment. And one person was sleeping 4 hours a night and one was sleeping 7. And this 4 hours a night person could not change. They could not change.
Even in the calorie range and all the things.
Even in a calorie deficit. That's what's fascinating, right? Now, they changed, but nowhere near like the people that were sleeping 7 hours. And we know we can go down and do a whole podcast on sleep, right? And the quality and deep sleep and REM sleep and all that. But it's like, that's where it all happens. And if you're not getting it, let's work on that. You know, and I'll have a lot of people ask me, like, it's 9 o'clock at night. I haven't done my workout. You know, should I squeeze it in now? And I said, no, it's more important than you get a night's sleep. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago.
Right.
I would have said the workout's more important than anything. They work out at 9. They're not going to bed till midnight easily. Right?
Any hacks or tips on how to get more sleep?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a whole industry now.
It's a major industry, and I love Matthew Walker. Let's give him a plug. You know, he's great. His book, Why We Sleep, changes people's lives. It's frightening, right? How it ages you and all that. And
you know what's interesting? Like, here's just a weird little stat I love. Like extreme examples. Like when the time changes in the direction that gives us less sleep, heart attacks go up by like 24%.
Yeah.
So I mean, the only thing that's changing is time is shifted by 1 hour.
Yeah.
And you know, our heart attack percentage goes up by 24%. So you think sleep's not important.
I know. It's amazing. It's
every year, predictably.
Predictably. And it's funny, like, you know, I just went to Europe and I got back and I kind of stayed on Atlanta time. Like I was literally staying up till 3 a.m. while I was there, right? But, you know, we all got back and like half of us got sick. You know, and I don't, you know me, I don't get colds, right? Yeah. And it was like I slept 2 hours on the plane on the way there. Then I took a 3-hour nap. Then I slept like 5 hours. And in Spain, you know, they don't go to dinner till midnight. Right. You know, it's so crazy, right? So, so some of the hacks, first of all, like I love wearables. You know, I'm a big fan of the Oura. I've been trying to get you to get one for a while, but I'm also not a fan if you're not going to use the data.
Right.
If you're not ready to change, don't spend $300 on a ring, you know, like don't do it. I really wanted to hack my sleep, so I just reverse engineered it. So I've got the Oura. I ran, you know, the algorithm has to kind of learn you. So it takes about a month, right? And after a month, I started to reverse engineer and I'd look when I got a low score and I just look back at what I did the night before. So for me, this is personal, but this goes to a lot of people, eating late is a killer.
Okay.
Right? Eating late is a killer. So, and especially high protein, which is interesting. So the good thing about
to digest, right?
And the other thing we didn't say about protein is it promotes acetylcholine, which makes you wide awake. So like if I'm going to go on stage, I'll eat half a steak. If I want to go to bed at night, I'll have a little bit of oatmeal or brown rice because that serotonin makes you sleep, right? So eating late killed me. Alcohol, if I had a drink with dinner at 5 o'clock, right? No problem at all. But if I had a drink after dinner, no deep sleep at all. None.
Just
one drink.
I was about to say one drink.
Huberman only wants to drink 1 or 2 a week. So
he's out of control.
Everybody hates him at this point.
He's out of control.
He's too damn smart.
Yeah.
But so those were things that I pulled out of it, right? So those are kind of like simple hacks. The biggest one to me that nobody listens to me, most people, is getting your phone out of your room, right? And well, how am I going to get up in the morning? I'm like, there's this thing. It's called an alarm clock. What? They make these? But I have to check. Like one guy told me yesterday, he said, I would do that, but what if it gets warm at night? I have to click on my Nest and turn down my air conditioner. I'm like, you can't walk across the room? Like it's all BS. Right. It's all just excuses. Like I tell people when I challenge people to do 30 days without alcohol, they're like, but I love the taste of wine. No, you don't. You like some wines better than others. If wine had no alcohol in it, would you drink it every night? No. Why would I do that? You're drinking it to get buzzed. And that's fine. I do the same thing.
Sure.
I don't drink beer because, oh my God, this is such a good tasting beer.
Right.
You know what's good? A McDonald's milkshake. That tastes good, right? Like a beer is not like, wow, that's the best thing I've ever had.
Right.
But so I've learned that. And then supplement wise, I've tried you know me, like I try everything. By the way, when we talk about crazy diets, I do all of them for 30 days, some longer if I like them.
Yep.
I ate carnivore, right? I lost a shit ton of weight. I lost 12 pounds in 1 month. Like all you're eating is ribeyes. I was maybe eating 1,700 calories a day.
Right.
I tracked it.
Can't eat.
I was so full. It's so hard, I was so full, just drinking a lot of water. But it was really hard to sleep. And I had weird dreams, like I was so much protein. My cholesterol also went to 350. I do my blood work pre and post.
Yep.
Yeah, my LDLs were 170. They're normally like 90.
I don't even know if that's a thing to be concerned about anymore.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it, but it was really interesting how just 1 month of, all that meat.
Yeah.
And I think all the carnivore people says that normalizes. Like in the beginning, you can't poop, right? Because there's no fiber. And then, like Joe Rogan said, he got the runs.
Right. You get like explosive diarrhea.
He listens to this podcast, right?
He does, but he's cool. I mean, we're friendly competitors.
We're killing him. But anyway, so supplement-wise, I try everything for 30 to 60 days before I tell you about it. So in case I die, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm your little tester.
Yeah, you're
King's
like
tester.
The King's, you eat the food first.
My biggest one now is magnesium. I'm having a crap ton of luck with magnesium.
Because I tend to get muscle cramps like for whatever. It's just a genetic thing I've always had. But I've added like nightly magnesium, and I do like the double dose or whatever. And it doesn't upset my GI, at all.
Nope.
And it's helped. I mean, I do feel a little bit more relaxed when I sleep, and it's good for you anyway. And there's actually an uptake for. What is it that it helps with? You probably know better than I do.
Well, it helps with a ton of stuff. It's good for your heart. It's good for cholesterol. Yeah. It's good. I mean, magnesium is a great supplement. It's super cheap.
Yep.
And then now they've got it in powdered form. It's like a lemon drink. It's kind of like you drink a tea at night.
Do the calm stuff?
Yeah.
That's
love
what
it.
I do.
Love it. And but it's when it comes, it is a laxative, right? So my rule is keep upping it until you have the runs, and then back off by 100 milligrams.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the only way to do it because everybody's different. I know some people take 300 milligrams and they're pooping. So if you have a problem pooping, magnesium's great. But that's been massive.
Right.
I've tried melatonin. I hate it. It's also really not good hormonally.
No,
it's got some
that's
bad
really bad
studies.
for you, yeah.
Yep. I hate sleeping pills. I hate all that because that's not actually sleep.
Right.
Like when you read Matthew Walker
don't
stuff.
Get deep sleep from
you're
that
not
stuff.
getting deep
You're not
sleep.
actually sleeping.
Yeah. So really, magnesium's been the number one. I've done CBD. It helps a little bit.
Have you tried any of the sleep aids, like the temperature regulation, like the 8 sleep and things like that?
You mean like the bed? I don't have the bed yet.
Yeah, like the cooling mattresses and all that stuff.
I definitely want, that's going to be our next mattress because I like it ice cold.
Same.
Like
and
as dark
it's
as
different throughout
possible.
the night. Like I first get in the bed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's blazing hot right now in July, but like sometimes I first get in the bed, I'm cool, but then I'll always wake up hot.
Always.
And so like a lot of these mattresses, they can change based on your body temperature.
Yeah.
So they self-regulate, so they keep you even all night long.
Yeah, and they track your sleep. It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. They're literally like an aura.
Yeah.
They tell you how much deep sleep you got and all that, and then they upload it to your. I bet it links to your refrigerator. That links to Amazon. That orders you like the aids that you need for sleep.
Great.
Isn't that scary?
That's what we need. Alexa is always listening.
My Alexa, on a side item, listened to my TV the other day. It literally heard my TV say something about something, and Alexa said, I can't order that for you now, right now, Mr. O'Day, or whatever. And I'm like, that's so freaking weird.
Yeah. That makes sense, though. Just language.
It is, but it's supposed to be, you say Alexa first, and then it turns it on. Oh, no. It's listening.
Always listening. Jeff Bezos is always listening. All right, guys. So that's our 5. Most important is to define your why, because nothing's going to work and you're not going to stick to it unless you're really, you got to be honest with yourself. And if you have a coach, be honest with them. Mm-hmm. Number 2, if you have a coach, that's the accountability, and you're going to have to track food at least for a minute to be able to see where you are. And if you start to stray, get back on your tracking. Number 3, calories do matter. Regardless of what you may have heard, your reason for not losing weight is probably not because you're eating too little. Huge, again, myth. Number 4, adequate protein. Protein synthesis burns calories, helps you build muscle, even just the protein alone.
By the way, that's across all diets. So that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have with the vegan diet. Not that I love
Gotta
vegetables.
Get your proteins in.
It's much harder to get enough protein.
Yeah, you can do it. You got to be really diligent. Most people
easy.
are not. It's
not
just
easy.
too much effort.
Yep.
And then lastly, it increases your satiety, so you'll be less likely to eat more junk. And then lastly, you got to get some sleep because none of these things work. And even to Rami's point, on the same diet, seemingly for different people, the ones that were getting more sleep were seeing more success than the ones that were not, which makes sense, right?
Yeah. And the only thing
and everything else.
The only thing we didn't talk about is fasting. It's a big question with everybody, right?
It's popular right now.
Super popular.
It comes and goes.
It does. Yeah.
Popularity.
Right. And like depending on what Peter Attia says is what we all do, right? So now he's a little off it, right? Like he's thinking you lose a little too much muscle. And again, going back just to wrap it all up, it's just another tool. It's not an ideology.
There's no magic to it.
It's not an ideology.
And they'll get into this like minutia about which kind of hormones get released, this and then growth hormone goes up. And that might be true, but it's so small in comparison to the overall big picture.
You know the number one thing it's doing? It's reducing your calories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a strategy for calorie reduction.
You're eating in 8 hours.
You shrink your eating window and you're busy, And again,
there is a lot to it. There's brain chemistry. I've done it. You've done it. I think it's great, but I don't do as much as I used to because it's really hard to get 250 grams of protein.
The only reason I don't do it because it is very convenient. I can't get all my protein in. And right now I'm 230 pounds and I've got to eat a lot of protein to maintain it.
Yeah, like Dorsey, the Twitter guy, he does 1 meal a day. He's been doing it forever. Like he's 2,500 calorie meal at night. It gets all like 100 and 200 grams of protein in one meal.
I think at some point there is some Goldilocks range of protein that I think you can really use. I don't know if I sat down and ate 200 grams of protein in one meal that I would be able to assimilate.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Your body just can't.
But I mean, whatever. Like again, if the guy's calories are in range and he does strength training and he gets decent nutrition in one meal and it works, he's probably better off than 99% of people anyway. So
1,000%. And again, he does it because he doesn't have to break time during the day. He can just work all day. And that's what I used to love about fasting.
Yeah, black coffee, no work. It's like you can get a lot of shit. I mean, no food, you can get a lot of shit done.
You're so focused, right? And again, but it's funny because of that people get addicted to it. Like I had a client she was fasting every other day for 24 hours. Not good. Like she got too skinny. She lost a ton of muscle and she couldn't stop because she just loved the feeling. And it was like a control issue and all that. So you have to just really be careful with it. But again, I'm not, so as a coach, like if we can wrap that into one big bow, I'm not against anything, like I think everything has a place, but unless you're doing these 5 things, don't jump on keto.
These are the 5 overreaching, most important things based on your 35 years of experience, whatever.
You got it. Yep. 35. You keep making me older every time I come here.
47 years of nutrition coaching. He's 73 years old. Look at him.
Yeah.
He doesn't look a day over 71. And on that note,
I do have 2 slots to just open. So we don't put my stuff out there because I have a waiting list for coaching, but I had 2 people leave.
If you want an online coach that kind of knows what he's doing,
sort of,
who's really old but doesn't look it or feel it, Rami's your man. Appreciate you coming on, brother.
Awesome, man.
All right, bud. Cheers.
Great.